Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and today we are kind of switching up the order of these Oscar predictions. Next in line should have been some crafts, should have been some text, but a lot has happened in some of these categories that we're going to be talking about today. So
we haven't talked about them in like 2 months, man.
Yeah, some of these categories we haven't touched in forever.
I went back to check, and it was August the last time we talked about these because we skipped over them in September or October because we had Arno come on to talk about international feature, and then we skipped over them another time because we ran out of time before TIFF. So, like, we haven't talked about these specialized categories in a very long time. Specialized categories, of course, being animation, international, documentary. So I'm really excited to talk about them again because so much has changed. The races are really kind of they're kind of shaping up. We kind of know what's going on. But as always in any prediction video, we have to start it off by talking about what has changed in the overall race. Not just the ones that we're going to talk about today, but everything. And I think that the major thing that's changed is the last two major contenders have been seen this week. Both Color Purple and Napoleon have been seen by people. Now, we'll talk Napoleon first because Dylan and I can actually weigh in on Color Purple. We've both seen that, so we'll save that just for a moment. But Napoleon seems to be getting mixed to positive reception. It has decent critic scores, but it doesn't seem like this is much more than people kind of thought it was. I still don't think this is anything above a small crafts player. It could get in costumes or production design or visual effects. But to me, these reviews aren't giving me the feeling of the commercial sensation that this would need to be in order to be a huge Oscar hit with the reception that it's getting from critics. So I'm not really confident in Napoleon. I wasn't beforehand, and I'm the same level of not confident now that it's been seen. What do you think about these Napoleon reactions, Dylan?
They're basically exactly what I thought they would be all year long. Ridley Scott's a filmmaker. You either love him or you hate him. And that's what these reviews seem to be. It's either they think Napoleon is great, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's grand, or it's just a mess and it's boring and it's whatever. And that's basically what every Ridley Scott movie, even the ones that do get Oscar love, like The Martian, there's people who really hate The Martian out there as well. So I feel like this trajectory for Napoleon always made sense. And then for The Color Purple, Matt and I have both seen this like he talked about. And yeah, I think this is essentially what we've been feeling like it is as well. I know we've both been higher on most people. It's obviously not to the level of what you thought in January when you thought it was a Best Picture winner and going to win multiple awards, but it's definitely not the out of Best Picture fringe contender that a lot of people have kind of been pushing recently just because they haven't seen it. I think this is firmly in the race. I would even go as far to say it's above The Holdovers. But you know, it has a lot of technical promise, and I think it could even slide its way into a lot of above the line categories, including director.
Yeah, after seeing it, I could see it get up to 10 nominations. And that doesn't feel like a huge stretch to me. After I listed them out, 10 nominations might actually be a little bit of a stretch because it would require the already stacked supporting actor lineup to accommodate Coleman Domingo. But I feel really solid about 8 or 9 nominations at least, because this is getting into all of those tech craft categories. It's getting into sound for sure. It's getting into cinematography. Make room in your lineup for it. It is gorgeous looking. It's getting into song. It's got those acting nominations locked up. Those are almost guaranteed, pretty much as guaranteed as you can be at this point. It's getting to supporting actress. It's getting actress for Barrino. It is the contender that we hoped it would be. This is, I would say, top 6, could become top 5 if it overperforms with the Golden Globes or the SAG Awards, because this could win Best Ensemble at the SAG Awards.
Can also win Best Comedy Musical Golden Globe, because if you look at their track record, if they have a musical that's in the Best Picture race, it just doesn't lose. So that's something that we'll keep an eye on when we do our eventual Golden Globe final predictions. And the last thing that's changed in the race, which we will include into these specialty categories today, is some music awards. The Hollywood Music and Media Awards happened this week, and they have some interesting stuff for their track record, I guess we'll just dive in right here. I will take score. We'll kick off with that because just going back to the last few years of this, the award show started in 2014, and the eventual Oscar winner was championed in a lot of these years. Just running back a little bit. First year, Grand Budapest Hotel wasn't nominated. The winner was Birdman, The Hobbit, How to Train Your Dragon. Next year, Mad Max and won Sci-Fi. Moonlight beat La La Land, but La La Land still got nominated. Shape of Water won. Black Panther won. Joker tied. Soul won. Dune won. And then All on the Western Front got nothing. But at this time last year, Netflix didn't care about this movie, so why would it get anything? They don't have an international lineup. They just do drama. They do animated. They do sci-fi. And they do fantasy. All Quiet would have to be in drama, and they went with Woman King last year, which kind of made sense for an Oscar nomination. Weird that that missed, but that movie missed everything. So this category at this award show is usually a great track record. And Oppenheimer was nominated, but guess what? Killers of the Flower Moon came out on top. It won this award. So that makes me think, oh, Oppenheimer is now volatile to like what I was thinking before. Because I had Oppenheimer as my number 2 all year long until I saw Killers of the Flower Moon. I was like, this score is good. It's just not great. But clearly, people do think it is great. So I think it'll be very interesting going forward. Can Killers overtake Oppenheimer? Because I think Oppenheimer's score is the one that deserves to win, but something I've been saying all year long. Ludwig Göransson's so young. Is he going to win a second one so soon? He's had chances for like Welcome to the Club type nominations with Tenet, with Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Both of those were in very weak years, and he still couldn't find his way into the category. So to me, it says like, oh, he's not in the club yet, even though he has an award. Oppenheimer firmly makes him in that club. But also, Killers of the Flower Moon, Robbie Robertson was a score that had been, heavily talked about when it premiered at Cannes. And then sadly, Robertson has since passed away. So that just adds a little bit extra fuel to the fire. So I think this is 1A, 1B. It's no longer Oppenheimer up here, nothing else. Killers, I think, is firmly at least in the conversation.
I don't see Killers of the Flower Moon being the thing to topple Oppenheimer. What we should be looking at is what else won the HMMA. And those were in the sci-fi category, The Marvels. Fucking LOL. That's so funny. That's so funny that they gave it to The Marvels. But then in the animated category, they gave it to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Could that be sort of a precursor of eventually maybe Spider-Man coming back into the conversation? Actually, I see in your top 5, you have an animated film in your 5, but it's not Spider-Man and it's not The Boy and the Heron. I'm kind of shocked because damn, man, Elemental is a bit of a bold call there, but maybe Spider-Man could be starting a trajectory upwards. And then some of the other winners that happened, Society of the Snow won the international category at the HMMAs. I see that in your top 10. Zone of Interest won the Independent Award, which is also in your top 10. If it gets nominated, if it gets a massive critics push, which it still can, because this score is exceptional, The Boy and the Heron. If The Boy and the Heron gets nominated, it wins.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I'll hold my reservations until I see more stuff with Boy and the Heron. But my case for Killers of the Flower Moon is it's a big movie. It has a score that people do enjoy, and it's from someone who they can no longer award. I know that didn't work for Chadwick Boseman, but different categories, different things. My case for Elemental here at number 4, Thomas Newman. He has been a long stay in this category. When he puts out a score, especially in a Pixar movie, he usually finds his way into this category. Daniel Pemberton for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse consistently misses out on nominations, where I would love for him to get in it, but I want to see more love start to come out. This is a great sign. He's risen up in my ranks. He was down to like 8 or 9. He's all the way up to number 6 now. So if I see him, especially like he gets in a Globe, he gets in stuff along those lines, then yeah, I'll put him in. I'll take out Elemental. My other 2 I have in my top 5 are Poor Things, as we've seen in years past. If your movie's pretty high in picture and you had at least a good enough score, you're going to make this. People say the Poor Things score is great. So number 3, you're in here. And then I have as kind of a bold take at number 5, but if this movie isn't picture, it needs some extra love along the way. That's screenplay, that's actor. That's only 3 nominations. Maybe director there, but score seems very likely for American Fiction. The score, I think, is very engaging. It's fun. They've nominated scores like this in the past. So there is a route for it, but they want to go for another Best Picture movie. There's Past Lives. There's Zone of Interest. These are movies that need those extra technical love along the way, but their composers may not be the most well-known, or their movies are just a little bit small, but I think American Fiction is stronger in picture than both of those. On the outside looking in, there's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the Society of the Snow. two scores I've heard great things about. I've heard the Spider-Verse score myself, but for Sighting the Snow, it's Giacchino, and he, like Pemberton, like Desplat, just randomly misses sometimes. So I would like to see him make the short list, get some of these precursors like he did at the HMMAs, to really believe in him. Because after the Batman one last year, I don't really know what to think about Giacchino, because that was not the first time he's been left off the short list. And then to round out my 10, I do have to Desplat for Asteroid City. He's not gotten in a bunch of years in a row, but he's always in the conversation. So him at number 10 seems very smooth to me.
Can I say something wild?
Yeah.
If Desplat is in the 10, it's not for Asteroid City.
What's his other
It's
one?
for Naiad.
Oh, Naiad. I didn't like the score of Naiad.
But I think it's more likely than Asteroid City for a nomination. Neither of them is likely, but I would say Naiad is probably more likely than Asteroid City.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's a Desplat. Are we fully discounting Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny now? No chance for John Williams?
I've just moved him off my list. He would be my 11. He's still ahead of Misahishi for Boy and the Heron. But with the emergence of Society in the Snow, with me taking American fiction more serious in this category, he's just on the outside. Plus, I think if he does come in, it will be Globes would be the first sign. Like, hey, John Williams still around. I'm willing to drop him off just to create space for other people. Maybe he makes more sense on here above Desplat, above Past Lives, but everything else I feel a little bit more better at the moment.
Do you think that there's any possibility for The Color Purple in score?
To be honest, I don't really know what would be original score and what would be carryover from the stage play. So
it's anything that is in the dramatic scenes is underscoring written by Chris Bowers. It is not at all using any of the motifs. I was being really careful to listen for that the entire time, just thinking, you know, does this sound like it's just a variation in the songs, or does this sound like an original composition? And a lot of it was just original compositions during the more dramatic scenes, because a little thing that we both felt about the movie, sometimes it does kind of forget that it's a musical and it just becomes a full drama. You know, we'll go for chunks with no songs and it'll just be scoring. So I don't think that there's much of a chance for Color Purple, but I don't want to fully write it off.
To me, none of the score really stood out to me. So that would be kind of a negative, especially when you're in a musical, you're adapting. Like, I think of something, I know Color Purple's a lot bigger than Cyrano, but if Cyrano wasn't even close, and that completely reworked everything, and it was from, I mean, Chris Powers isn't not a name, but the people involved with Cyrano were names. So like, I don't know, that wasn't even close in a weaker year. I don't know how Color Purple would be close in a stronger year per se.
Okay. Yeah. No, I got to agree with you there. I feel like once you hear Zone of Interest, you might remove it from your list. Even if it does pick up some of those awards, it's not the type of thing that the Academy is going to go for. Anyways, let's move on to the next category, which is Best Original Song. The biggest thing that's changed here, not only have we seen The Color Purple, we know what songs are from The Color Purple. Also, Grammy nominations are out, and we see the priorities that are kind of going around for Barbie. What are they pushing for Barbie? What is big for Barbie? And of course, Wish came out. So there's a myriad of things that are kind of giving us more information about this list. So at number 1 and number 2, I have Barbie songs. And it's a little bit tricky here. I kind of bounce between the two of them because I think they both have a compelling argument to win. Now, the thing with What Was I Made For, this is clearly it's the song. It is the emotional core of Barbie. It is beautifully performed by Billie Eilish. All of the Grammy love, it got a song and a Record of the Year nomination at the Grammys. That is big. It could win one of those categories, which could also help push it to win Best Original Song. Because goddamn, imagine winning Song of the Year at the Grammys and then not winning the Oscar for Best Original Song. Would be wild. So that's the argument for What Was I Made For? But on the other hand, I'm Just Ken is the iconic part of Barbie. Yes, it might not be the best song, but it's the song that you're going to remember when you're leaving the theater. You're going to remember the visuals that are attached to it. And I think this is where the question comes in. Are we awarding the song itself, or are we awarding the song for its use in the movie? And if that's the case, I'm Just Ken wins. If it's the song itself, What Was I Made For wins. There's also the argument of, is Billie Eilish going to win a second one so soon? But ultimately, if the song is getting all this love from the Grammys, then they might just say, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. And just give Billie Eilish a second one. Honestly, if you could put 3 Barbie songs in here, it would easily be Dance the Night as well. But that one's sitting all the way down at number 6. What do you feel about that placement of the Barbie songs? And do you still feel like a vote split might make something else win?
I do think the vote split may make someone else win, but I think you do have the right 2 songs in, with Dance Night being the one outside looking in. However, for your, I guess, argument for pro What Was I Made For? I think they both work for What Was I Made For. That is the emotional heart of the movie, like you talked about, but that does involve the movie itself, the plot, the visuals on screen. And I mean, I'm Just Kidding, maybe the more fun song, but I would say What Was I Made For is the more popular song too. It charted very
I would
well.
too.
It
Yeah,
got
it charted.
awards. So like I really just don't see the angle for Ken unless you just want to pick the fun song. But when has the
Yeah.
Academy picked the fun song in a while? They just have. I mean, you can make RRR, but that was just something completely different. Where I'm Just Ken has so many other things in the category, because like What Was I Made For? I would say is a front runner. But I mean, if they want to go Disney musicals, they have their Swish. If they want to go with something from an actual musical where it's being performed in front of you, you have Keep It Moving from Color Purple.
But yes, like you said, we've got Wish, we've got The Color Purple. Now, the song from The Color Purple is called Keep It Movin'. There's 2 new songs in The Color Purple. One of them made no impression on me. I could not tell you what it was or what the name of the song was, and I could not remember it
Was the
after
Corey
the
Hawkins
song
one?
ended. It was the Corey Hawkins one,
It was
as
like a
he's
minute
building
long. Yeah, it
he's
was super
building the
short.
house. Yeah, it's super short. It's not really impactful. Keep It Movin' is the one that Halle Bailey helped write, and she performs it. And it's the rare time when a movie musical adds in a song that's actually as good or better than the other songs in the movie. Like, this is a common complaint that I have when movie musicals add in a new track. Keep It Movin' from The Color Purple, I actually do think is one of the best tracks in this movie. It is one of those rare times, and it's on screen, and it is lively, and Halle Bailey is singing it. So this feels like a surefire nomination and could be a win if Barbie vote splits. Then there's also This Wish from Wish, which is the Disney song. But as we're starting to see, Wish is getting bad reactions. It's getting bad reviews. It might not do well with audiences. We don't know that 100% yet. But if it doesn't, then this song might actually be totally dead in the water, because the song so far hasn't really made a splash on radio, has kind of made a splash on TikTok, but not as much as you need. So what finishes off the number 5? It's Diane Warren. And we're starting to see Diane Warren, the Warren verse, all those songs compete. And it seems like the one that's rising above the others, it's not going to be You from 80 for Brady. Instead, it is The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot. Yes, the Disney Plus Hot Cheetos movie seems to be the one that is the Diane Warren song of the year. So we got to keep that Diane Warren spot. But I do want to put forward, because Diane Warren has not just this song, but also 80 for Brady and also the song from The Magician's Elephant on Netflix, it is very possible that those 3 songs vote split in the nomination phase if she gets too big of an ego and is like, you know what, I'm going to go for multiple nominations this year. She doesn't have a base big enough to do multiple. So if she is dumb enough not to prioritize, which I don't think she is, I think she's a very smart campaigner. If she doesn't prioritize one of them, she could miss entirely. You can probably see, you're probably a little bit sad that I have Better Place all the way down at my number 10 slot.
I mean, it makes sense.
It does make sense because it's Trolls, and Can't Stop the Feeling did make it in a few years ago, but that got in because of how popular it was. And Better Place just doesn't have that level of popularity yet. At least, the movie's out already, and it's not connecting the song with the people, whereas Can't Stop the Feeling was like a hit for a year before Trolls came out. But some stuff in between. I've got A World of Our Own from Wonka at number 7. And this one, we haven't heard it, but it doesn't seem to be getting the traction. And also, we've heard a little bit of early word that Wonka might actually be pretty mediocre. There's also Can't Catch Me Now from The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, sung by Olivia Rodrigo. She's having a year. That could be a big bonus. But on the other hand, the Hunger Games series has always had great songs for their credits. Always. You know, they had Safe and Sound by Taylor Swift for the first one, didn't get nominated. They had Atlas by Coldplay for the second, didn't get nominated, and people kind of thought that might. Then they also had Yellow Flicker Beat for the third one by Lorde, that didn't get nominated. So why is Can't Catch Me Now by Olivia Rodrigo going to get nominated? And of course, there's a song I haven't heard that you have, which is It Never Went Away from American Symphony. That said, John Batiste, despite the fact that he is this big Grammy sensation, this is a documentary song. This is a documentary song from the documentary about himself. And sometimes those songs get shortlisted, but they do not get nominated. I think last year to My Mind and Me by Selena Gomez, which was the track that was promoting the documentary and the documentary that was promoting the track, and it did not get a nomination, although it did make the shortlist. I feel the same way about It Never Went Away. It doesn't seem like it needs to be nominated, just shortlisted.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just a credit song. It's not one of his best songs or anything like that. I think that in a weaker year, it could get in, but this year's proven not to be weak at all, where we can make a case where you kind of know your 5 nominees. It's just the order and then what Diane Warren's song it is, sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's definitely shortlisted, but that's the farthest it would go. What I think is interesting is you've given up on the Am I Dreaming Spider-Verse no-show song. It's not here on the list at all.
Yeah, I feel like it maybe should at least be on the list, but it just seems like the race is kind of moving away from Spider-Verse. It's on the graphic. It's probably my number 13. It's below Peaches. So yeah, it's my number 13 below Peaches.
Well, in a category where people will not forget about Spider-Verse, it's my number 1 for animation. And I think this is basically lock, sealed, deliver as much as this category can be. Anyone who says something else, I think is just coping or is just trying to be different. Boy and the Heron, sure, it can be number 2 now after Wish is not as strong as it seemed like it was. But the constant complaint about this movie is it's not his best. It's a step down. It's a little bit of a letdown. And I don't think a movie with that type of buzz can be your winner in this category, but it sure can get a nomination. Number 3 is Elemental. Yeah, had pretty bad buzz at first, but that continue to get better. As at the moment, as you saw, I have this being a 2 nomination movie. And I think that is good enough to be number 3. Number 4 is Wish, another movie I have being a 2 nomination movie. I could see this one in this animation feature entirely. We have not seen this at the time of recording, but by the time that this video is out, we both would have seen this. So check the description down below, check the comments. Our thoughts should be there. And then at number 5, I don't feel good, but Netflix has proven whatever movie they push will be in this category. So I have Chicken Run Dawn the Nugget. As far as we know, that is their push. They haven't changed to Nimona. They haven't changed anything else. So I do have Chicken Run at 5. But if Wish is out or Netflix just does not get a movie in this year, The Peasants is right there at number 6. I want to put it in. I just don't know what to take out at this moment. And I know people say, oh, take out Wish, Critic Bomb, take out Chicken Run. Netflix doesn't need one. But like, the stats or the feels don't really back that up, even though I really want to make the switch to something.
Yeah, I think after we see Wish and after we see the cinema score come in from Wish, it really is going to be dependent on, like, do people care about this movie? If general audiences care, it doesn't matter that critics don't care. It's the same way with Elemental. General audiences ended up really caring about the film. It blew up on Disney+. It ended up doing very well in theaters through its full run. That proves audiences cared when critics didn't. If the same happens to Wish, then Wish is in. If Wish comes in with a B, B+, B-, anything less than an A- cinema score, Wish is done. It's done at that point, but we can't fully take it out until then. I would say, though, put it at number 5 instead of number 4. Because Wish is on much shakier ground than Chicken Run.
I think The Peasants is stronger in international than in anime. Just both those categories feel kind of strong up top. So I don't think it would get in both, but it also wouldn't make sense just to be in one and not the other. So it could just miss in both, and that's what I have currently. If Wish and Chicken Run are out, and I need a second movie. TMNT, audience liked it, critics liked it, could come up. Nimona, another Netflix movie. Trolls Band Together. I heard it's better than the last one. And then Super Mario Bros. Movie. Yeah, Super Mario is not, but I am confident Super Mario Bros. Will hit every precursor. Golden Globes in, CCA in, PGA in, and then it just doesn't make the Oscar. And it probably should even
Yeah.
be top 10 for the Oscar, but it's just there because it's hitting every precursor. Well, that's going to move us to international feature where I like your lineup, but I'm still sad one movie is so far down on your list where I think it's easily either
Ooh.
5 or 6. But I'll let you take away your line so far.
I'm really curious what that would be. Interesting. Okay, so to start us off, I think at this point, I can just stop the coping. I can stop the hoping that something is going to topple the zone of interest. It just seems like it's just going to run away with it, just like in any other year where you have one big best picture movie, and then you've got everything else. And the entire season, we delude ourselves into thinking, could something beat Drive My Car? Could something beat Amour? And the answer is no. If it's in Best Picture, it's winning. And Zone of Interest, even if it doesn't make Best Picture, it's still winning because it's getting a directing nomination. It's getting a sound nomination. It's likely to get into cinematography or, maybe supporting actress or maybe, God forbid, adapted screenplay. But yeah, it seems like one that's just guaranteed to run away with the prize. And does that make me a little sad? I mean, I would have loved to see a stat breaker. I'm not upset that Zone of Interest is going to win because it's a very well done, well put together film. I just love the excitement of something else happening. And, as much as I love the taste of things, I don't think it's done what I expected it to do. For a little bit, I was like, oh, this might get so much critics' love that it just kind of ends up winning and taking it. And I don't see that happening anymore. So ultimately, Zone of Interest is number 1, and Taste of Things is down at number 3. It's not getting the critic love that I wanted it to get. And when it comes to those critic awards, it's not going to sweep those critic awards. It still has a path if Juliette Binoche ends up being more of a contender than we expect, but I don't think she will be. So to me, Taste of Things is just relegated down to number 3. Then at number 2, we've got Society of the Snow. This one is the potential tech juggernaut. This is the one we have to watch out for because the audience reactions it's getting, the reception it seems to be getting with international voters, this could show up everywhere at BAFTA. That would be a little silly to predict that, wouldn't it? It would be like a little
Just
funky.
tiny bit.
Just a tiny bit funky to be like, yeah, because All Quiet happened last year, this year, Netflix is going to get something in that no one is talking about. Anyways, to round up my top 5, I've got Perfect Days at number 4. You've seen this. I haven't. I still feel a little bit apprehensive about some elements of it, but everyone else is telling me this is much more conventional. This is much more of a typical story than you'd heard beforehand. Like, my impression of it was that it was just a collection of moments with no story, just a dude cleaning toilets. And that to me didn't sound like a nomination. But the way that you've been describing it, Dylan, sounds like it could be a nomination. Then at number 5, I feel a little bit concerned about this because typically, outside of some stat breaking years like last year, usually 3 out of 5 of the nominees are from Europe, and 2 of them are not from Europe. Last year broke that rule. There were 4 European films and 1 non-European film. This year, I think I have to go 4 European again because I don't see another non-European film really being a strong contender. So I'm going 20 Days in Mariupol from Ukraine as my 5th place film. This is going to win Best Documentary. And we've never seen the documentary frontrunner kind of pop its head into the international race. We've seen documentaries do it, but they've always been stuff like Honeyland or Flea or Collective. Films that we knew weren't win competitive in documentary were the ones that kind of popped up in international. This year, we have 20 Days in Mariupol. We also have 4 Daughters. And interestingly, 4 Daughters feels more like an international nomination than a documentary nomination.
I haven't seen 20 Days of Mariupol, sadly, so I can't really add to that conversation. However, I do think Perfect Days, like you were kind of alluding to, is a lot more accessible movie than what some people may have described it as. I personally think it's more accessible than the Taste of Things. Maybe it's a hot take. I don't really know. But Society of Snow is a great shout. Regardless if it gets that BAFTA love, I think it's good enough to get here to the international feature, and as well could pop its head above the Oscars into some tech categories, especially Score with Michael Giacchino. But if you're looking for another movie that's not European to put into this list, it's one that I've kind of been
Mm.
promoting all year long because the people who do watch this movie seem to very much enjoy it. And it's hitting up at these award shows when they're just nominating big name movies. They still find room for this very small film, and that is Mexico's Totem. And I don't know if I would put it in my 5 right now, but if you're looking for another non-European film, it's right there. Of course, Four Daughters is as well. I think there is a world where Four Daughters can be international and Miss Doc and 20 Days in Mariupol could just be Doc and Miss International.
Funny enough, every single time Poland has been shortlisted for the Oscar, they have been nominated. That is a true fact. Literally, every time they've been shortlisted, they've been nominated. So does this break that trend? It could, because it's the peasants, and I don't know if they're going to go for it. But if it makes the shortlist, then statistically, it should be guaranteed for a slot. I don't know.
I mean, where was that stat?
Shaky.
Where was that stat with EO a few years ago? That would make me feel more confident about it all season long.
Well, because people didn't think it would get shortlisted.
I guess I did. I had EO at either 5 or 6 all years, but maybe does it make it in? But if I had that stat, I definitely would have had it in. But after the Peasants at number 6, Totem's at 9. What else fills out your top 10?
Well, I've got Me Captain from Italy at number 7. This has been getting great reviews. It is a refugee drama, which could really play well right now, especially. Four Daughters, like already mentioned, Totem, and then just to round out some other possibilities, Fallen Leaves from Finland. This has been getting selected at every festival, and there is a good stat that if you're getting selected at every single festival in the fall, then you're pretty likely to get a nomination. Following that up, a few other possibilities here. We've got About Dry Grasses from Turkey, might be a little bit too alienating for the Academy. Plus, Janus Films seems to be pushing Totem a little bit more. There's also The Promised Land from Denmark. This seemed like it was top 5 a few weeks ago, but it just doesn't seem like they're doing much with it.
That will move us over to documentary feature, where you will take this one as well, because you've seen more of these films than I have. Of the ones I would say that are firmly in the race, I've only seen 2, sadly, being American Symphony and Four Daughters.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts on American Symphony on this, because I've got it out of my 5. Because my 5 is 20 Days in Mariupol at number 1. I think this is the undeniable winner. Yes, it lost the Critics' Choice Award. So what? It won the political doc category over Beyond Utopia, which is my number 2 here. I think that it's shaping up that if these are the 2 frontrunners, Mariupol is stronger. Beyond Utopia is a very good film, but it's not really saying anything that needs to be said right now in the world. Whereas 20 Days in Mariupol is about war. It's about invasion. It is very relevant to the ongoing war in the Ukraine. It's also relevant to the war that's going on in the Middle East at the moment, in Gaza. So I feel like that film being number 1 makes sense. Beyond Utopia doesn't have that connection to current events. The way I see it, you look back at previous documentary winners, they're either incredibly relevant to the current political situation in the world, or they are frivolous, fun movies that have nothing to do with politics and are just like, oh, I learned something about an octopus. So it's one or the other. There's also Four Daughters. This is powerful. It is cinematic. It feels like a very strong contender for a nomination. It's picking up these noms all along the path so far. There's also the Netflix movie of the year, which I would say is Stamped from the Beginning, not American Symphony. Stamped from the Beginning is a film about racism. It is relevant to the current times. It is definitely something that's going to connect with people, and Netflix is leaving it to the last minute to really, really push it. But it seems like they are pushing it. So Stamped from the Beginning is my number 4, and rounding us off, we've got Eternal Memory at number 5. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think that this is going to be the one that misses. This is going to be the big documentary we expect from the beginning of the year that just doesn't make it in. So what else could it be? It could be American Symphony. It could be Against the Tide, which is doing very well on these sort of critics circuits early on. These early documentary awards, Against the Tide is doing very well. Could be still a Michael J. Fox story, which is the Critics' Choice winner, which is a Bad Omen. A bad omen if you follow the race, because there's also The Deepest Breath, which I don't have a lot of faith in, but maybe Netflix pushes this hard. And of course, The Mission, which is a film from the directors of Boys State, which was criminally snubbed back in 2020. I would say I think that our 5 is probably in the top 7 movies here. or it's something that I just am not touching on whatsoever. I know you've brought up in the past Orlando, My Political Biography. It's too experimental to get in. I would love that. It is a great movie, but it is far, far, far too experimental.
My argument for American Symphony to get in this category would be that one, person-focused doc that's about someone that we all know to get in. I think it very much balances the highs and lows of what has gone on in John Baptiste's life throughout the last year and a half or two, showing how on top of the world he may seem in the music industry, but how everything behind closed doors is not really going according to plan. I think it kind of checks off those boxes of both being feel good while also tugging at your heartstrings, which I think could set it off well enough. So it's not just like, oh, here's this person that we know and who's famous. Here's how they're successful. Here's their story. It's not really about Batiste. It's more about his partner and their struggles while he's also having to put on the performing face while out in the public scene. So I think it's different enough to get its way in, but it can also see and miss. It's by the director's Matthew Hyman, who has a good track record in this category. So that could be good enough will to push it in. And if Netflix is behind it, this can easily be their main push. Check off a lot of the boxes. I think if it makes the shortlist, it's in. If it misses the shortlist, then obviously it's not getting in. I think it's one of those movies where the shortlist kind of makes or breaks it sort of thing, because I feel like when you make it past the shortlist, it just checks off a box where I don't think any other movie really here does, besides still a Michael J. Fox movie. But as we previously talked about, it won the award, which is basically the sign of death. So I would expect that to just miss the shortlist at this point.
There's been movies like this in the past that have made the shortlist and then don't get nominated. Like Billie Eilish, The World's a Little Blurry, got shortlisted. It was a great film. So much more than a typical artist documentary profile, puff piece. And it didn't need to get that nomination. And I'd say the same thing with American Symphony.
I guess so. With the Billie Eilish comparison, I just don't think Billie Eilish's doc got that great of traction. It was the COVID year as well, so she wasn't really out there pushing it either. And that was Apple, where this is Netflix. John Baptiste is out there pushing. It's hit almost every festival so far, where The World's a Little Blurry came out before the fest season in a COVID year as well. So I don't know. I just feel like this is a different trajectory as well. It just really comes down to how much do people connect with the story about cancer, how can they relate to it as well, and that could be the tipping point, because as you mentioned, not every nominee is going to be feel bad. There needs to at least be something feel good here, and looking at least at this list of 10 besides Still is kind of really the only feel good one of the bunch, and still I would say American Symphony is stronger than that.
We're currently lacking those more feel-good, more uplifting titles in the current documentary 5. So I think when we get the shortlist, this is going to be totally shaken up. I do not think that what I have is going to be indicative of the final list. There could be some big, big surprises. If expected titles are in the 5, I think they're in my top 7. But if something else makes it into the 5, I don't think it's on my list at all.
That's the fun of these short lists, is it really shakes up all of these categories so much. So definitely want to consider subscribing, because you want to be here when these short lists come out. Drop a like, it helps our channel grow. And we'll have some more Oscar content coming out here and the next week. But until then, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.